This is Mike, and I want to show you some features of the Discrete Fourier Transform stock file. If you've purchased it from me, and I thought I don't have any real good documentation, but I thought it's really a simple file that really doesn't use macros, but it uses all cell formulas to do the discrete Fourier transform. But it is handy to use a macro to call in data, and I'm going to show you how I do that. Um, I use this TC2000 software that from Wharton Brothers and find it very good. You get a good screen, and right now I use the SPXL to trade, and it is a 3 times volatile of the S&P index. So it's 3 times volatile. So it means it goes up and down 3 times the amount that the S&P does. So it is Labor Day, Memorial Day. So the stock market isn't running, so this site isn't active now. But I was going to show you how to download the data from this website into the stock program in Excel. So if I get my stock running here, and I'm on the 1 minute time interval. See this little M? That's 1 minute time interval. And let's see, now if I go over the chart and I hit the right click button and I go to export chart data, and I have to get it up here where we can see it, export data, and I save it to my directory, trading directory, 1AA trading, and I send it to a file called TC data. That's for TC2000 dot. If I hit the dot, CSV. Okay. Now that's the name of the file I'm saving it to. You can put it in your directory where you want, and I'll show you how I set that directory. And it says I want to. Now, there's one thing about that. This shows after hours on Friday, and that won't look real good in my chart. But let's go down to the Excel spreadsheet for the discrete transform, and I'm going to run a macro now that will load the file that I just exported and saved to my trading directory. And it's set up with a macro that all I have to do is hit Control U. So let me hit Control U. Now it just ran that. So I'll hit it again. Let's make sure. See, it's running it. All right. Now let's do this. Let's run it, and I'm going to hit the break key and stop it, and we'll single step through it. Okay. So there you go. I go to debug. Now it's running that macro, and it's in module 4, and it's an update from TC Data CSV. And here's it. So there's the directory where I just put the file I downloaded. You can change that directory name as you want. In fact, let's just stop this and single step through it, and you'll see exactly what it does. Now, if this isn't the software you use to do your trading with, or to get where you would use to get your data, you would probably need to rewrite this macro. And if you need help doing that, I'll be glad to help you do that. But I'll just single step through it and explain each step. So there, that opens that CSV file, the data file for that stock. Okay. Now I hit, and that's going to get range A5 select, and then it opens that uh, window for the file and selects O1, goes into that mode. Then it makes a formula in that program, finds the max, range, selects O2, does a match uh, formula on it, and then range, then opens the discrete Fourier transform file, gets the last row of the TC data file, start rows that, range, sets this range, all right, opens the window for the TC data, the data file, and it copies that over to the discrete Fourier transform file. And let's see, that goes back to the discrete Fourier transform file, makes it active, and then goes to that sheet in that file, and it pastes that information in. So what I just did was pasted the information, the stock data, into the discrete Fourier transform file, and then I activate the TC data file, CSV file, and I get range A selected. It's selecting range A. I copy it, and then I go back to the Windows Fourier Transform stocks and select the A and W13 range, and I paste that into the discrete Fourier stock file. And then I go to the price data sheet of that file, and I clear the contents. And then I go back to the data file. I select the range A1 to E in the last row of it. I copy that into that file, and I close the CSV file right here, and I Windows Discrete Fourier Transform Stocks. I activate the uh, Discrete Fourier Transform file, and I select the price data sheet, and I select that, and then I paste that data that I got out of the data file into the price data sheet. And I turn off the alerts, and then I activate the discrete Fourier transform again, and go to the discrete Fourier transform XForm stocks sheet of that file, of the main file, and then I select that discrete Fourier transform stock sheet, and then I go to range BR59 and select that. And that has pulled in and copied the stock data from my Wharton Brothers software, just doing their export file, okay? Now, I usually run that about 4 times a minute, and I used a third-party software, macro recorder. I'll show you your macro recorder. It's really good. Uh, and I'll set it up like I do. All right, there's macro recorder. So let me get these going just the way I would have them as I am doing the stocks, as I'm playing the stock market, you might say. All right, there's my recorder. Here's my Wharton Brothers. And now let me get my Discrete Fourier Transform running. Okay. Let me size this for the sheet here. I got the video going too. It's kind of adding another layer of complexity to the operation here. Now, since it's a weekend, let me show you here. This is that data file pulled in from Warren Brothers. All that looks kind of messy and choppy because that's after hours. That's after hours on Friday. Today's the 25th. That'd be the 24th, 23. That would have been May 22nd, Friday, May 22nd. So, and I'll show you how I can fix that by going to this price data sheet. Okay. Now that's where I'm getting my information for that chart. So let me go down here. We'll see where I loaded in. You can see it's the hours are past 16, 4 o'clock. Okay. So here we go. So now let me just erase those. Oops, I don't want to erase that over to the right. I just erased that. Okay. So that way we won't have the after hours data. And that's where the stock prices are. That's that's in this sheet right here. That's the chart sheet, discrete Fourier transform stock sim, and the data for that chart is right here. Actually, it's copied over to this sheet. Now let's see. But you can see here it doesn't look as choppy as what it did after I updated that. Let's now this is simply a sheet with a chart on it, and it's looking at that data. You can see where the data comes for this chart right here. So I've got these columns of data that I'm graphing, and so there's the price, and I got a bunch of blank series there I need to remove. So, but let's see if I go to edit, it shows me where it's getting that data from, and it's called the Discrete Fourier Transform Stock Sim Sheet at EK, column EK. All right, and that's the sheet. So let's go to column EK. I've got that chart blown way up, so I need to see if I can get out of there, and I can't. I'm going to have to play around here with the. I've got to zoom in on this chart, and I've got to resize it because of that. So here, let's see if I go over to EK. And that's where that particular line came from, right here. That's where the stock price goes, right here. So whatever price you put in for the stock in this column is what's displayed on the chart. Let's see. There's the chart is in here. Column EK is where the price goes. Let's see if I go down below the chart. Uh, it's hidden by the chart, but that's where the if you want to paste your own stock data in, that's where you could do it, and it would be displayed on that chart. Now there's one other thing. Let's see. Let's go back to the chart. Okay, so there's the chart. Let me zoom back out. Okay, there's the chart of the stock data. And let's look at that data again, where that's all coming from. And you can see here that the date is coming from column ER, okay? That's where all the dates for these lines is in column ER. Let's go look at column ER. I'm going to have to zoom in again, okay? ER, let's go over to ER. Best way to do it is just scroll like this. So here's ER, and here's the dates, the time and date. So back, I say that was for May 22nd at 1:53 p.m. Okay, so it's about a minute. So that would be 128 data points. Let's see, I've already down past 128. Let's see. Let me size this chart. In fact, let's go full screen on the Excel and let me size this chart so we can see ER. Here's all those dates and times. Really, I didn't put those side by side with the price because I was using the program to pull it in anyway, so I really didn't need it. So that macro that I ran, the pulling in the data, puts this data in the discrete Fourier transforms file from this price data. And this price data sheet is just copied over a copy of the data from the file, that's the TC data file. Okay, that's exported from Wharton Brothers. So it depends on how you want to get the data into your this Excel file to get it into the sheet, and it shows you everything uh, about the. Here's the chart right here. The uh, the program I'm using to record the video is blocking me from seeing my uh, chart in Excel, but here it is. Let's see if I go over. I want to see my chart. There it is. That's the chart that I want you to see when you do your trading. And so let's go up. And I will zoom back out. That makes the chart smaller. And let me resize it now to fit this hole in my window. There we go. So now if I zoom back over, that's the portion of that chart I want to see as I run. Yeah, I'm almost set up now. So let me just show you how I record a macro here. You go to record. This is a third party, called Macro Recorder, and it works real well. So I basically I have this macro recorder running. I have the TC2000 running, and I have my discrete Fourier transform running. And I have to record the program I want in here. So let's do that. I just hit record. I come over to and right click on the discrete 2000. There we go. Export chart data. And that recorder is recording everything I do. And I hit TC2000, type in TC2000. The lights on my keyboard aren't working. TC 2000 dot CSV. Here we go. Now I've saved that, and then I can come over to here, and it's going to record me doing this now. I hit Control U for my utility of pulling that in, and now that is pulling that data in from and running that macro I just showed you. And there's running the macro. This over here was the data file, the TC2000 CSV file ran, and that's that. Now you see how we go back to after hours? If you were during normal hours, you'd pull in the actual data, you'd see. And I showed you how to get rid of that by going to here, and let's get rid of it again. All right, I go to price data. Now that macro also put in the chart data. Let's see now. Let's go back to 1600. Set 4 o'clock. All right, and I get rid of that. Okay, so there. Now let's go back to my chart. And there you go. Really, I hinted that this workbook was more for crunching the numbers to get the discrete Fourier transform. And now let's just look at the what we're seeing here in this file. Let's see if I can. Yeah, let's just do this. I'll scroll this way. All right. Now, so just a little bit of what we're seeing here on the discrete Fourier transform now is the transform is very similar to a regression analysis where you might fit a 128-degree polynomial to your data points, okay? Very, very detailed fit of a polynomial, except Fourier came up with the method rather than using the polynomial for to represent the data. He gets it by adding the series of sine waves. So that's what you see all these sine waves are. At any point in time, the price is the sum. This black line right here is a price. See the price, and then that price is equal to the sum of all the sine waves. Okay, so the sine wave with the largest amplitude is going to be contributing the most to it. Now here's the next amplitudes. So I would say the red one and that one and that one are the dominant waves, and maybe that one. All right. So what I did, I added this other line here, which is the combination, the sum of those top three amplitudes sine waves. So that gives me an idea of what if I follow this black line, you can see that it follows the price pretty good. All right. That the top four follow the price pretty good, the black. Now let's see, that red is the average of all the sine waves. Okay. So it's going to follow the price exactly. All right. That average. But that shows you that's what's going on with the discrete Fourier transform. he breaks out all these 128 data points. He breaks out these waves. I believe there's 64 waves out of 128 points. That's just the way the discrete Fourier transform works. Now, so what we got here, this black line is the sum of, I say the top two, it's really the top four. The red is the average of all the waves. This black is the actual price of the data. And then you've got all of the individual waves. This red line usually is the one with the maximum amplitude, so it's usually the dominant wave, but not always, all right? It's easier to play the market when this is the dominant wave. Now, here's a little chart I made showing amplitude versus frequency. So the frequency, the lowest frequency is the red line, all right? And the higher frequencies are all those that are just going real fast, all right? The ones across the line, the axis the most is the higher frequencies. So, and that's the way the discrete Fourier transform is set up with the using the certain frequencies. And those have been determined by the 1 minute time interval that I use in my data. Okay, so, but now look, let's just look at these four, the sum of the top four. Now look how that does. Here we got a peak in it, and here we got the peak in the cost of the price of the stock. It peaked almost in line with it. And then you can see the price, the top four, the sum of the top four is coming down. And sure enough, the price comes down and then it bottoms out. Okay. Now, I like it best when you don't have these other frequencies uh, so much to being in the same amplitude as the big red, I call it. All right. But you could look at this and see if that lower frequency is more dominant, like all these others are clear down here, and that's the most dominant, it's easier to play. But with this black line, you can play the market pretty good. You basically want to be selling when this black line is high, and and sell when it dives down. But now look at the sum of these four and how it dived down with the big red. See, it almost bottomed out at the same time as the big red did. So there's the price. See how it dove down? Almost exactly in sync with the big red. All right. And then for this red sine wave reached its minimum, you can see the price started back up again. So a good way to play this is just using the big red or using this sum of the top four. Okay. Either way will do it. But you want to play the extremes, and most of the time, the extremes are when this big red is peaking or going to its minimum. Okay, and it's just a sine wave. Okay, now it's a sine wave at a certain frequency of the 1 minute intervals. Okay, so that's a little bit of the theory of the discrete Fourier transform and how to apply it to the uh, stock market and using 1 minute intervals. And all this are the crunching of the numbers. And let's see if I go over here. All that, all that data, and all the formulas for the discrete Fourier transform are in these cells. It's not using a big fancy macro to calculate the discrete Fourier transform. It's using the cell values. See, I just clicked, I'm zoomed way out, but you can see if I click a cell value, see how you got these signs in here, and you got a phase shift, and you got an amplitude. Okay, so that's that. Well, I'm going to get out of recording that macro. I'm going to forget that. I didn't save that recording, but I was showing you how I set this up to use all three programs. You can see I had sold short here on Friday. This was just on paper. That's just playing. That's not really, I wouldn't stay in aftermarket. So that's just selling short. You can do that in this TC2000 software. You can just play for fun, you might say, and practice your uh, homing in on how to use the discrete Fourier transform. Okay, so this video is probably way past what it should be time-wise, but I thought I'd show you how to use the Excel file, how I use it with the in with the TC2000. Highly recommended this Warden Brothers, and they asked me to show this where you could get it. Let's see. Oh, let's see. Well, there you can go to their website. Okay. And it's TC2000. This is version 20. And I pay about $50 a month for it, but I'm getting up to the minute stock data. That's very important. Get up to the minute stock data. With the, at first, as you can see though, that with the, I don't really need by the minute that, like this peaked here, and it's going to come down. Let's see what time that is. That peak was at 228, 228 on Friday, the 22nd of May. And let's see where this bottom is. That's at 332. So about an hour from peak to valley. So you got time to hit it, you know, see. And but look what the price did here. Here you're following this. This is the sum of the four waves, and it peaked right here. If you'd have grabbed that peak, and you could have come right down. Now, one more thing I wanted to show you how is because these prices are going up and down so much. Uh, let's see. I believe I made the macro on how to change the scale when I'm using the secondary over here and the primary axes. If I remember right, the uh, the actual price of the stock is plotted on the secondary axis, and the actual price of the waves is on the primary axis. Let's see if I can show that. So they need to be scaled correctly about every day, maybe twice a day. You'll need to scale these axes. Now let me show you one way, easy way to do that. So I say format axis. All right. Now one easy way. Now that's the price. See that price is running about $37 a share now. It went down to 16 the day of the big crash here about a month or two ago. But it's a good one to play. It was a high of 63. So one thing you can do is put that in automatic. Now let's do that. And we're going to see this black line here go a full scale. There you go. So that there's the price data that's on the secondary axis, and that's a good way to find it. All right. Sometimes you'll come into here and it'll just be all messed up and you may not see any waves at all. You might just see straight lines on the axis. And that's the reason you need to set the scale on the price of the stock and on the price of the waves. So here I've reset the stock and so I could go back and let's see if I do that. I change that to, it's kind of hard to, there I go, format the axis. And then I can see it's got a maximum of 37. So let's see, if I make that max 30, 36, say, it's going to 36. On the minimum, I'm going to keep that up. Let's make it 38. All right. And you see it went back down. And in the same way with these waves, very important. If you want to see these waves good, you've got to get that axis set right. So I hit format axis over here, and it didn't go right. Let's try it again. Format axis. Oh, here's my minimum max. So let me reset. Look at my max here is 0.08. The the um, the numbers are really weird for the discrete Fourier transform. See. So let me do a reset here. Let me do a reset here. And that's pulling my waves in to where it's better. You could just leave those on automatic, but you may want to zoom in on to see the uh, red line better or whatever, you know. But I suppose I should send that file out with these set on automatic. All right. So that's a little bit about what you're seeing here. Here we got amplitude versus frequency. I used that to see if my big red is the dominant frequency. And here, I don't use this one. I thought amplitude versus the phase angle or the angle, and really haven't figured out too much to do with that yet. But it's a different technical analysis number, and it takes some getting used to. So you've just got to watch it. But like I say, is a pretty good market indicator by seeing where the big red is and where to see the some of the top four are. All right. Well, that'll close this video, and I hope that gives you some insight on what you're seeing on this discrete Fourier transform for the stocks, and it's 128 data points. So I'll see you in the next video.